Axie was meant to introduce people to crypto through something that reminded them of Tamagotchi and Pokemon. It was built on the idea that, hey, people want to play with their NFTs. People want to battle. We then realized that, hey, people wanted to trade those experience points and buy them, without the Axie attached to them in many cases. So we were like, okay, this is a good opportunity for a free market. That was the first time, right, that a blockchain game had a token attached to it. One of the ideas was that, hey, if we can get everyday people mining cryptocurrencies by playing a game, that might be a model that they would, basically that would get them interested in the space. But Axie didn't really reach its true potential until we played it on Ronin. We had to build it because nobody else understood gaming. And at that time, in 2021, all the scaling solutions were premature and not ready for us.
Welcome to Epicenter, the show which talks about the technologies, projects, and people driving decentralization and the blockchain revolution. I'm Brian Crane, and today I'm speaking with Jeff Zirlin, who's the co-founder of Ronin. Ronin is a gaming-focused layer one. The same team previously got to some notoriety or fame through starting the Axie Infinity game as well. So I'm really excited to speak with him today about his story, the story of Ronin, and blockchain gaming more generally. So just before we start with Jeff, we'd like to share a few words from our sponsors this week.
If you're looking to stake your crypto with confidence, look no further than Chorus One. More than 150,000 delegators, including institutions like BitGo, Pantera Capital, and Ledger, trust Chorus One with their assets. They support over 50 blockchains and are leaders in governance on networks like Cosmos, ensuring your stake is responsibly managed. Thanks to their advanced MEV research, you can also enjoy the highest staking rewards. You can stake directly from your preferred wallet, set up a white label node, restake your assets on EigenLayer or Symbiotic, or use their SDK for multi-chain staking in your app. Learn more at chorus.one and start staking today.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Gnosis, a collective dedicated to advancing a decentralized future. Gnosis leads innovation with Circles, Gnosis Pay, and Metri, reshaping open banking and money. With Hashi and Gnosis VPN, they're building a more resilient, privacy-focused internet. If you're looking for an L1 to launch your project, Gnosis Chain offers the same development environment as Ethereum with lower transaction fees. It's supported by over 200,000 validators, making Gnosis Chain a reliable and credibly neutral foundation for your applications. Gnosis DAO drives Gnosis governance, where every voice matters. Join the Gnosis community in the Gnosis DAO forum today. Deploy on the EVM-compatible Gnosis chain or secure the network with just one GNO and affordable hardware. Start your decentralization journey today at gnosis.io.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian.
Just to start off, I'm curious, how did you become interested in crypto and involved in this space?
I volunteered for the campaign of Ron Paul in about 2008, 2009. And when I joined that, I joined the newsletter. So I found out about crypto via the Ron Paul newsletter in about 2010, 2011. But for me, the idea of digital gold was a bit boring. And I understood the problems with fiat money and sovereign debt. But, if fiat and government bonds were going to crash, there are other ways of making money than just buying Bitcoin or storing wealth, right? You can buy farmland. You can do all these other different things. You could buy stocks because whatever money gets redenominated in, right? Equities, real estate, real assets will still have value. Bitcoin, cool, real asset. So it wasn't until I discovered Ethereum and Cryptokitties that I got really interested in the space. So I grew up playing video games and collecting things. The first thing I ever did on the internet was play StarCraft. My father collects butterflies and insects and fossils. So my way of relating to him as a child was via collecting. So when I discovered Ethereum and Cryptokitties in 2017, this was like, hey, this is interesting to me, finally, intellectually, and from a entertainment perspective. I can meet a lot of people Just like my father has friends all over the world that collect butterflies, I'm meeting people all over the world that are interested in this NFT thing. And they tend to be pretty smart, optimistic people. So that's what initially captured my interest in the space, was basically Cryptokitties and Ethereum. And after that, I wanted to contribute. I thought, hey, this is my chance to become an entrepreneur and actually build something, which was something I'd been waiting for my entire life. But it felt like for our generation, we were born a bit too late to meaningfully contribute to the birth of the internet, the birth of Web 2. All my friends who wanted to be entrepreneurs at the time, they were making scooter apps or doing e-commerce, right? They're building something so they could sell it to Google. And that wasn't for me. I wanted to contribute to something that was net new.
Cool. So for those who don't remember Cryptokitties, can you just explain what were Cryptokitties and what was it about Cryptokitties that you found so cool?
Cryptokitties were an early NFT project, and you could breed them, right? So it actually had a Mendelian genetic system, and you could breed them. It had some problems, right? Or it just, wasn't set up necessarily to be a long-term project. But the breeding mechanic and the collecting, these were things that were very, very interesting. And I think people started to think about, and I actually think that the birth of Web3 gaming, birth of Axie, was the answer to a question of how could we make something like CryptoKitties go on forever, where it would always make sense to want to collect new cats or breed new cats. How could we extend that cycle, right? So within the CryptoKitties community, people were saying, "Oh, we need to build games and mini and experiences for these cats, so people would always want to buy them." Or we need population control. We need these cats to die in order for us to want to continue breeding them, because right now it's just like the population is going up and up and over time. Even if demand is constant, then it's not going to be a workable situation, right? So a lot of those questions are actually what went into the initial conception of Axie Infinity, where we're like, okay, you need to be able to you need to be able to earn the right to breed an Axie. We need games so that anyone who wants to play the game would be forced to basically buy Axies to play the game. So there'll be basically supply control, reasons to buy, things like that.
So then Axie was both your first kind of real crypto foray and also your first entrepreneurial endeavor that you undertook.
So I joined Axie as a community member. I'm a co-founder of Sky Mavis because we founded Sky Mavis a year after we started working on Axie. But I found Axie as a community member initially, and I fell in love with the project. I just started doing the things that I felt the project needed me to do, and then I joined the project full time. I moved to Vietnam from New York. I gave my dog away to my parents. I broke up with my girlfriend because I fell in love with the project, and I thought that it could really go somewhere.
So Axie is probably also something a lot of people have heard of. But can you explain, like, how did Axie work and how did it manage to get such traction for a while?
So Axie was built to introduce the world to crypto through something that was fun and nostalgic, something that reminded them of childhood rather than something that was overly futuristic. Something cannot be too much from the future, otherwise people are going to be afraid of it. That's one of the problems that crypto has, is that it's too innovative. So if you can package something that's innovative in a way that makes it relatable, that's where a lot of innovation comes from, right? For example, an iPod, which is something that people already knew about, that could make calls, right? That's like one way to think about it. Axie was meant to introduce people to crypto through something that reminded them of Tamagotchi and Pokemon. Axie was built on the idea that, hey, people want to play with their NFTs. People want to battle most people want to battle, right? Like people want a battle mechanic. That was the number one thing that people in the Cryptokitties community wanted, was battles, and for uh, the battles to be related to breeding. So yeah, that's basically, you would battle your Axies, you would gain experience points, and then you would use those experience points to breed. We then realized that, hey, people wanted to trade those experience points and buy them, without the Axie attached to them in many cases. So we were like, okay, this is a good opportunity for a free market, right? We're in Web3 gaming, or we're in blockchain gaming, or there was no name for it at the time, right? But we're doing Web3, or we're doing crypto and gaming. Let's see if we can create a market around these experience points. So then we tokenized the experience points, called them small love potions. And, that was, I think, like a crazy moment, because that was the first time, right, that a blockchain game had a token attached to it. And at that time in crypto, most people didn't really care about NFTs, but people were still interested in ERC20 tokens. So we started to see that, hey, like a lot of people are now interested in our game because it has a token related to it. So yeah, that started to get us some initial traction, but Axie didn't really reach its true potential until we deployed it on Ronin. So Ronin is a gaming specific blockchain. We had to build it because nobody else understood gaming. And at that time in 2021, all the scaling solutions were premature and not ready for us. So, for example, we tried to use Loom Network, which is one of the original layer 2 solutions for Ethereum, right? But they gave up. So we're like, fuck, like we can't build our startup on top of another startup. We're going to have to do this ourselves, and we're going to build one that's specifically built for gaming. So we built Ronin, we deployed Axie on it. Axie was the first game to experience exponential growth because of Ronin. So Axie went from 19,000 DAU to 2.8 million. It did billions of dollars in volume. It did $1.3 billion in revenue. And it really created the category of Web3 gaming. We built throughout the bear. So with Ronin, right, like we went beyond Axie, where we started to onboard games outside of Axie. And Axie continued to build. Axie has 300,000 monthly active users today. We just announced an MMO that hit 400,000 pre-registrations within 48 hours of the announcement. So I think like basically we built out and improved the use case for Ronin with Axie, and then teams that wanted to learn from us and also build games for the Axie community started to deploy on Ronin. Pixels was a big example of this. They came in, they migrated from Polygon, where they had 5,000 users, and hit 1.5 million users within 4 months of migrating to Ronin. So yeah, now, right, Ronin is known as a very gaming specific blockchain. We just opened it up. Why? Because there are a lot of application developers that they're like, wow, I've been building DeFi protocols, whatever, for the same group of people for over the last 4 years. The Ronin community is a way to introduce your DeFi protocol, your application, what have you, to a group of users that's mainly just been using blockchain games and using one DEX.
Maybe you go back to Axie like briefly. So I know one thing at the time, right, was also that you had a lot of people who were then kind of playing Axie for a living, and like earning some of these love potions, I guess, and then selling them. So I think you guys had a big community, or a lot of people playing it in places like Philippines. Or can you tell us a little bit about how that economy, what it looked like, and what the dynamics there were?
So the idea, right, is that like a lot of people that were obsessed with crypto that I knew about were miners, right? And I was like, okay, like, of course you guys would be interested in crypto. You're freaking mining it. Like, you basically only have to pay electricity and you're getting coins. But how will we make everyday people who aren't miners interested in the space in the first place? That was one of the reasons that I wasn't interested in Bitcoin. I didn't want to mine it because it sounded too complicated. I didn't want to buy it from another person. I was like, how come you get it for free, basically, or you're just able to mine it, but I have to pay you basically real money for it? So one of the ideas was that, hey, if we can get everyday people mining cryptocurrencies by playing a game, that might be a model that they would, basically that would get them interested in the space. So those are the first principles of why you would even give out a token by playing a game. Those tokens, right? The SLP was needed in order to breed Axies. And as more and more people came into the game, right, there was increasing demand for Axies. One of the things that we've done as well, like that we deployed during the bear, was this idea that you need to kill Axies too. There needs to be creation and destruction. There needs to be even more population control rather than just like demand. So now, like, in order to make your Axie more beautiful, more powerful, you actually need to destroy Axies. You need to destroy Axies, get crafting materials, as well as paying tokens to make them stronger. So that's, to me, right, like one of the next phases of Web3 gaming is basically this idea of a dynamic NFT.
When you think of Axie and the history of Axie, what are the biggest things you learned about blockchain gaming and the biggest like lessons that you would give to anyone else wanting to build a blockchain game?
So these are the things that we do for our partners on Ronin. Is like all the lessons that we take that we got from Axie and building in Web3 gaming for 7 years, right? Like we help disseminate those lessons to our partners. In addition, right, like we're taking a lot of those lessons and putting them into one game. Axie Infinity, Atia's Legacy is basically an MMO that we just launched. So a lot of these lessons are, right, how to grow a Web3 game, right? How to like build community, how to be a leader to many people at once. How to manually onboard people to your crypto product, because in the beginning, it's going to be really difficult to get people interested in your product, right? You might have to do some like manual onboarding. How to manage an economy, how to think about sinks and faucets. So these are some of the things that we're thinking about, right? There is no like pre-established, well-defined playbook in Web3 gaming, because the market is always changing and the meta is always changing as well. But we do have, right, different case studies and different learnings that we're able to share with these teams. And that's one of the things that really attracts builders to Ronin is a chain that's actually built by a team that has built a mainstream crypto app. There aren't very many of those chains, if any, other than the Ronin network.
So first you basically built Ronin for Axie specifically, and then later we're like, okay, let's make this like a general gaming L1 and allow lots of other people to also build on it.
Yeah, I believe that that's like a model that will work, right? And it's kind of similar to, right, what Hyperliquid is doing, where, right, they built a chain first for their perps decks. Now, right, like they're able to theoretically, right, like get that traction and turn it into something else.
So when it came to building a blockchain specifically for gaming, what's needed there, and like how does it differ from just a sort of general purpose blockchain?
Yeah, so one of the things that makes Run unique is that we have like a vertically integrated system of applications, such as the Ronin wallet, the Ronin marketplace. Ronin wallet is a wallet that's specifically made for gaming, has a lot of features that are specifically useful for gamers, as well as a marketplace that's specifically made with gaming NFTs in mind. So yeah, a gaming chain obviously also needs to be really fast, and it needs to have gamers on it. And I think that's really, now a big differentiator is the people who use Run Network, right? Many of them are originally Axie players. There are people who already know about Web3 gaming and know how to use a Web3 wallet and are interested in trying out new, interesting Web3 gaming products.
When it comes to maybe Axie or other blockchain games, what's actually the interaction between the game and the chain? Because presumably you don't have like the entire game run on chain, or do you have that in some cases, or in some cases some parts are off chain and some on chain, or like how does that break down?
Different games do it in different ways. Some of the things that we see, of course, is having the game assets on chain, having things like daily check-in on chain, so people have an understanding of how many people are actually playing the game on a daily basis. and doing like state changes or basically progress, right? So NFTs are now leveling up, right? So basically having that reflected in the metadata is really important as well. Having reward systems on chain, right, where you're basically minting tokens, burning tokens. These are some of the things that we're seeing.
So, in crypto, of course, always one of the big topics, the big principles is the idea that, you don't have to trust and you can verify. Um, how does that work with the either Axie or other games built on Ronin? Since, there's a lot of off-chain part and then it gets, reflected on-chain. Is there some way to like verify that, the off-chain part is accurately reflected on-chain?
Well, the thing is, right, the incentive is for anything that people want to know about, then the developer has some, at least demand for putting it on chain, right? So I think it's really up to in some ways. So this is an interesting, right, balance where sometimes, right, it may make sense to have more things on your game server and just selectively put things on chain. And this is always a constant balance. In the early days of Axie, we used to make it so that for every single time you wanted to battle your Axies, you would have to submit a transaction. But the players hated that. They didn't want that. They didn't want to see all the battle logic as well. They didn't care about that, right? What do they care about? They care about free markets, ownership. They don't care about like individually verifying the data as well. But there are certain things that you want to have like on that basically use like a on-chain VRF, right? And it's gotcha systems, rolling, right? Things where there's basically a large amount of money at stake based on chance. You want to make sure that right, there's not some rogue engineer who's like manipulating that to their advantage.
One thing you mentioned that you guys, have learned a lot about and now try to also teach people building on Ronin is the aspect of like community building. And of course, community building, I think, is important for, all crypto projects, right? Because in the end, you want to have a lot of users, they have tokens, they engage, they feel like a part of it. They'll hold it also, maybe when things don't go well and stick around with the thing over the long term. So what are the biggest things you've learned about how to build a community, how to build sort of an engaged and committed community?
Yeah. I mean, I wrote a book about this called the Web3 Gaming Growth Handbook, and I can talk about some of the principles, but I also encourage everybody to check it out. So community building happens in stages. So in the beginning, it's a lot of like manual onboarding, right? So you need to find like, okay, who are the people that would be theoretically interested in using our product. In the early days for us, it was like, who are the people in the world that are interested in NFTs? And then we can tell them and get them interested in this idea of an NFT game. So we reached out to the Decentraland community. We did partnerships with them. We did campaigns where we would give them Axies manually. Likewise with Cryptokitties. There's a lot of like manual onboarding. Incentive alignment, right? So how do you basically scale this idea of the community doing work? Is you need to find ways to make them feel sufficiently incentivized to use their small amount of time to advance the interests of the network, which they are now owners of. Referral systems can also be really powerful, right? Where people are basically doing work and being rewarded systematically for the onboarding impact that they're having. UGC, right? UGC is a lot of what powers both gaming communities, Web2 gaming communities, and now Web3 gaming communities. Community members getting tattoos, making musicals, just making a ton of art, right? That all helps to basically promote the network and show the strength of the community. Doing manual gifting, right? So in the early days, we manually gifted to Cryptokitties and Decentraland. But now, right, like over time, it was like, who do we strategically gift to? We wanted to go on Binance. Or like Binance has never done a Web3 game listing or launchpad. Gave every single Binance Angel Axies. And then boom, it's like they're all become your advocates within whatever organization you want. how do you like actually do interviews or player interviews or user interviews, right? There's like a whole art to that where you actually want to do it in person. You want to ask them like specific non-leading questions. Yeah, you also want to like find ways of doing your elevator pitch, a 1 minute version, a 5 minute version, and a 30-minute version, and constantly like repeat that. How do you basically also like toe the line between being transparent with your roadmap, but also like basically creating unreasonable expectations, right? There's an art to that. And then, yeah, like how do you communicate that you're winning? What is the data? What are the North Star metrics that you're going to be centered around that aren't like vanity metrics that you're able to basically talk about to the outside world to show that you're winning, because people want to be part of something that's winning. People are lonely and people feel like they're losing. So if your project can basically make them have friends and feel like they're winning, then you're going to be winning.
I'm curious, do you feel there are some projects outside of gaming, like crypto projects that, have done have done the best when it comes to community building and, have done some things that, work super well and that inspired you?
There are a lot, of course. And I think that Ethereum's values, especially in the early days, has been able to attract a really great community around it. Bitcoin is the strongest community, right? Where Bitcoin is almost like a meme coin, right? But it's the original one. And I actually haven't really hung out with too many Bitcoiners, except when I went to Trump's inauguration. I met some of them, right? So Bitcoin community is like almost like a totally separate community from the rest of crypto, because a lot of them are actually like normies, right? Like, or right, they're been onboarded by Bitcoin and only in Bitcoin, and they're not into anything else. And in many ways, that kind of reminds me of the Ronin community. So these are some of the more niche ones, right? Like, with DeFi, right? Things like, the early Uniswap community, I think was really interesting, right? Like basically the whole like, group of people that was in like DeFi summer with Wi-Fi, SNX, Uni, like early compound stuff. Like to me, that was like some of the strongest community that I ever witnessed in crypto. And, I think like part of the problem with Ethereum is that there's been kind of a dispersion or a disillusionment in that exact group. I do think that with regulations changing and loosening, that group is still here and ready to be like reignited.
Yeah, I think with Bitcoin, one of the things that became such a powerful thing is this hodl meme, right? Because I feel like if you tell people, look, all you have to do is just hold the coin, and then you're basically it becomes this moral imperative, right? Like, oh, if you have to, if you hold the coin, you're strong and you're a believer and you're a part of it, and you also, helping make Bitcoin succeed just by holding Bitcoin. I think it's something that, like it's very powerful.
For sure.
I'm actually curious about the thing you said about Ethereum. So Ethereum has had a bit of this, like dispersion. I think that's like accurate to say, right? Where people feel less like focused just on Ethereum and maybe a bit less aligned. Do you think is that just a consequence of scale and maturity? Or like, do you think there's some other things that Ethereum should have done differently to keep more coherence in the community?
Everything is going well with Ethereum except for the price and the narrative. All the metrics, Ethereum needs to be winning. Ethereum is winning. I believe that what's happening is relatively healthy. I believe that what's happening is also kind of a result of the regulatory environment. It's only been since November that the regulatory environment has kind of gotten more clarity. If you want to build useful stuff in crypto, then you need to be able to back your token value with cash flows and revenue. Otherwise, of course, people should just buy Bitcoin and meme coins. And basically, that's been illegal for the last 4 years. And I believe that Ethereum, right, has been paying a bit of a price there. But I think, I see the changes being made. The Ethereum Foundation has new leadership, which is good. I never, um, I didn't know what the old leadership was doing, but it wasn't very visible. And crypto is about transparency and kind of leading from the front, or at least, right, servant leadership that is visible is another way to think about it. And I don't think that type of leadership was being exhibited by anybody at the Ethereum Foundation in the past, other than Vitalik. So new leadership for the Ethereum Foundation makes me excited and hopeful. Danny joining Etherealize, which is very focused on real world adoption. Vivek is who's the CEO of Etherealize, actually one of my college buddies, and so he's probably one of the smartest people that I know. So I believe that they'll be doing really good work to get to onboard Wall Street to Ethereum. And then Aave just did the buyback, right? And I think they're doing $1 million per week of buybacks and so this is what's going to happen. DeFi will win, and real use applications will win because they generate fees that are then used to buy back tokens and create token holder value. And Ethereum wins via that happening at scale, both with DeFi, gaming, and other use cases. So yeah, those are all the things that I'm taking, that I'm keeping my eye on. And, I believe that it's annoying, obviously, if Ethereum doesn't go up. I have ETH. I know I've sympathized with everybody who holds ETH, but everything is going well with Ethereum except for the price. And right, like markets are irrational in the short run, right?
So let's talk a little bit about the Ronin, the Ronin economy. One thing I'm curious about. So one of the great benefits of blockchains, especially like general purpose smart contract blockchains, is that you can have a lot of composability, and you see a ton of that in DeFi, right? Where like people do one thing, I don't know, Pendle, and then they use the asset in Aave to borrow against it, and then do something in a third protocol. So I think that kind of composability is working like super well in DeFi, and it feels like very powerful. How do you see that in maybe current state of Ronin, and also how you want to see it in the future? Do you see a lot of sort of composability between different games that are being built, or maybe some kind of apps that are being built that I don't know, maybe like DeFi like apps that kind of work across games?
Composability, interoperability. These are some of the things that people always tout as benefits of Web3 gaming. One of the things that we see is, okay, if you want, there are certain really strong communities that are associated with either strong tokens, culture coins, or NFTs on the Ronin network. If a game wants to do user acquisition, then giving that that token or NFT utility within their game economy can be a way to basically create user acquisition. So we are seeing a bit of that. But to be honest, like that's one of the things that still really like has a lot of work to be done around, like it's kind of been like interoperability or whatever is kind of like a meme of like, oh, theoretically what makes Web3 gaming useful. I think there is opportunity there. And we have seen, right, games like Pixels, right? Like they were able to attract a lot of NFT communities to Pixels simply by integrating their NFTs as PFPs within the system. They created like a scalable architecture for basically being able to import any NFT and kind of like pixelize it, right, and bring it into their game. So that's kind of a thing. I mean, games become powerful when they get hooked up to DeFi protocols. Axie Infinity and Play to Earn was the combination of Uniswap and Axie, right? Most of the original users of Uniswap came from the Axie community. When you're not maybe the volume, but in terms of like the people actually using Uniswap, like a big chunk of them came from the Axie community. And that was the fundamental innovation. What happens when you connect a DEX in a game? It's like, rather than having to pay Google and Apple for marketing, just deposit some liquidity, and you're able to now have like a user base of your game, and that can help you get over the cold start effect, right? Games aren't fun unless people are playing it, right? So what theoretically makes sense to pay your first, your first initial group of users. Another way to think about it is like, it's like, right, like at a club, right? Like there's certain girls, they could pay them to be in the club, that kickstarts the party, and then, right, like everyone else is gonna pay to come into the club because it's fun.
Yeah. With what are the types of games that you feel are most suitable for Web3 gaming? And, what are some types that it doesn't really make too much sense?
I think MMOs are the best because they have deep economies, they have social features, they're highly emotional. Some things that don't make sense is like very like hyper casual games, but maybe if like those hyper casual games have like elements of risk or gambling or real loss, then there's ways to make it work.
And for those who are not gamers, can you explain what MMO games are and what sort of differentiates them?
MMO games are games like World of Warcraft, where you basically go into a world. Uh, you can play with your friends. You can do things like go into dungeons with them and play simultaneously. Yeah, you can just hang out, talk to people, show off your gear. MMOs typically have like very advanced economies where there are many, many, many different types of resources. Those resources might be needed to craft certain things. They typically have a ton of content, right? Where you basically have like PvE content, which might be dungeons that you need to team up with other people to complete, as well as like PvP content, which might be like large scale wars and battles. MMOs are kind of similar to real life. You can do whatever you want in an MMO. You can hang out with people, you can make friends, you can go on your own adventures. MMOs are, when I played World of Warcraft, I would socialize, I would compete, I would have fun, I would progress. Basically a lot of the reasons that life, that you're interested in, life, can be almost replicated in an MMO environment. And this, for me, I got too much into MMOs, and my mom sent me to boarding school when I was a kid.
Because you wanted you to play less MMOs.
Yes. So I got sent to a boarding school that turned off the internet at 9 p.m. And this is before you could like just tether up with a hotspot or whatever. I mean, you need really good internet to play an MMO as well.
One of the areas, right, where today everyone is focused a lot on is AI. What do you think the impact of AI is going to be on gaming and on Web3 games in particular?
Gaming and AI are a great combination. AI has been in games for a really long time already. Right? Bosses are powered by AI. A lot of advertising is actually already powered by AI. So I think it's huge. AI is obviously getting smarter and smarter. I think that NPCs that are able to learn and basically, learn in a much more interesting and realistic way are going to be huge, especially to like things like MMOs. I think that AI powered questing systems, right, where your game experience will be powered by an AI that's basically learning about your preferences, right? What do you like to do? And then it's almost like choose your own adventure, but you're not necessarily choosing. You're kind of choosing by what you're doing, but then the game is like molding itself to react to your preferences as well. So I think like bosses, NPCs, quest systems, game content, all of these things are ripe for being enhanced by AI. In many ways, they already are, which is also a good sign that it makes sense because, right, if it's been happening over the last 5 years when AI hype has been relatively low, then now that AI is getting even stronger by the day, it should basically be a sign that there's a good likelihood. I also think that AIs will be great at balancing game economies as well. So one of the big problems with Web3, or one of the big problems that's ripe for solving is like, right, like ideal distribution of incentives, right? And almost self-balancing economies. And so a lot of that is like, yeah, that should be done by an AGI, right?
So you mentioned the kind of similarity between MMOs and real life. And I'm curious your thoughts here, because I guess one of the scenarios sometimes people talk about is like, oh, AI is gonna, make human labor kind of redundant, and then people will just go and play games, right, as a way to get some sense of achievement. So I guess that's like one thing. I'm also wondering to what extent you feel MMOs actually, teach people like skills and competencies that then they help them in the real world, or is it more like an escape thing where people feel like, the real world, it's too hard, but in the game I can get like this much more consistent reward and sense of progress.
Yes. First of all, and AI will disrupt a lot of different types of human labor that maybe humans are best not to do. And humans will spend their days, right, trying to figure out how do I have a sense of meaning in the world? And then they will start to think about, you know, how am I spending my time with my friend? Am I being a good friend? Am I being a good family member? And am I being a good human being? And how do I do better? These are some of the things that people will start to think about once they're relieved of some of their day-to-day concerns and activities, right? Theoretically, this is in a world where AGI exists and right where it's like almost permanent abundance. People just get like food and stuff like that because AGI has created like a golden society, right? Otherwise, right? Yeah, it could be like more bleak, right? But let's think about that type of a situation, which I think is more of the likely outcome because it's also like related to the trend of the world. So yeah, people will be lonely, and human to human interaction will be one of the last things that humans kind of specialize in, right? So hanging out, playing games, being a good friend. These are some of the things that many people will find meaning in. I think that'll be great for gaming, and I also think that gaming will be an increasingly important part of society because of that. Yeah, we've been thinking about this for a long time, right? Where with the rise of AI, people are going to have to find new ways of contributing to society. And participating in these virtual economies, right, that will be a path for many people. Also testing products, right, giving feedback, right, grinding Discord, right, like it's really like you're starting to see, if you squint, right, that like it's just like more of society will become like the day-to-day of some person who's right and not really working, and just kind of like uses crypto apps and kind of trades a little bit, uses crypto apps, right, like that type of archetype of person already exists, and I think that more people will do that over time.
If we speak with like crypto investors, many of them feel like, oh, we've made like gaming related investments, and those are all like, I think, have a track record of working out very poorly. Why do you think it's been so hard for crypto gaming related things to like succeed as tokens and as things that create economic value?
Everyone tried to copy us and raise money, right? It became too easy, right? So, we skipped, right? Like we skipped all of the stuff that tried to copy us. And of course, they weren't necessarily coming to us. So we were kind of safe. But investors were looking for the next Axie, right? Whenever you try to invest in the next something, you lose, right? Sushi swap. I think of all the people who tried to buy Sushi swap because they thought it'd be the next Uniswap, right? It's always the original. Right? There's only one Bitcoin. There's only one Bitcoin, the original store of value. Ethereum, the original smart contract platform. Right? Axie, right? The original play to earn game. Ronin, the original gaming blockchain, right? Like people always lose money when they kind of try to look for the second best. So that's kind of the way that I see it, right? It's like they were looking for the second Axie, the second Sky Mavis, the second Ronin, and they failed. But that's how things work in crypto. Is like the majority of the value accrues to the one that did it best first at scale. And I also think, right, like that, yeah, there will be teams, right, that figure out, right, like new models of Web3 gaming value accrual, because people also think that, yeah, with gaming there's a lot of winners, right? Oh yeah, like the cool thing about gaming is there's going to be a lot of winners, but actually crypto products are networks, right? Networks typically have like a Pareto distribution of value accrual, right?
Yeah. So when you look at where Ronin is today as a chain, how would you describe the current state, and where do you want to see it go in the long term?
Ronin has proved that it's about more than Axie, right? We had Pixels that went parabolic. Currently 600,000 daily active addresses, 1.8 million monthly active addresses, 18 million Ronin wallet downloads. NFT volume on the Ronin chain went up 182% last year. You're seeing like you're seeing NFT mints sell out, and a ton of outperformance in terms of like the NFTs that are launching on the Ronin chain. Games like Fableborn, Cambria, Lumiterra, Forgotten Universe, Ragnarok Online are all poised to, I think, do really well and ship. So I think Ronin has proved that it's home to the best Web3 games. I think that Ronin has proved that it can be about more than Axie, even as Axie has continued to innovate and reinvent itself. And we just recently opened up the Ronin chain. And we'll be having different DeFi protocols come to Ronin. I think there's like a huge interest from also developers that aren't necessarily game developers, but are interested in building applications for everyday people, right? And I think that's the pitch, is like there are a lot of like people on Ronin who have never used some of these DeFi protocols. So, if these DeFi protocols want to like access a new user base, then Ronin is a really good chain expansion opportunity for them. And so that's how I'm seeing the current landscape. I also think that, people are looking for new use cases over time. Like people are going to want to actually use crypto more and more, and people are going to be looking for friends and communities that they can partake in to be part of crypto and to learn about it. So I think that's really where we specialize, and it's kind of how I see the current state of Ronin.
And then the long term, do you want to see Ronin as kind of like the hub for like Web3 gaming, and have like, all the games, or, as many as possible, all kind of build on Ronin, and then have kind of Ronin chain as this like shared like economic substrate for all these chains? Is it like something like that, the vision?
The more of the best games are on Ronin, right, just creates this network effect where, what we saw, the most vulnerable point for Ronin was after Axie did well, but then there was obviously the bear market. We got attacked. That was the most vulnerable point because we needed to prove that that Ronin could be about more than Axie. Then Pixels came and they showed that, wow, this model could actually work for other games. And then we got in all-star class of subsequent games. So that has been like that has been like the key, right? Is to show that, right, like we could be about more than Axie. And then after Pixels, being able to catalyze that momentum into getting the next class of best games. And now that we have that, okay, great, we're king of the gaming chains. But what's the larger vision, right? Is that we can basically create this network of games that onboard people to Web3 at scale, and then you can introduce them to DeFi protocols and payments applications, and fulfill the original vision of crypto, which is basically creating like this mass interconnected payments network. You just need to figure out like how to use everyday applications that get people in at scale as the carrot.
Yeah, that's interesting. So do you also see some kind of, because I guess one thing is like, okay, in Ronin you can have, the dexes for, trading different gaming assets and things like that. But then I guess could also go in the direction where then these people maybe start, I don't know, doing like stablecoin yield stuff, and hold their savings there, or like sort of as a general chain.
So many
Yeah.
people have said to me, "Oh, because of Ronin, I realized I don't have to use Western Union anymore to send money to my relatives." Right? Oh, like my I'm feel so happy because my grocer now accepts Ronin wallet QR code payments. So yeah, like obviously that's the idea is you onboard them to gaming and then right it becomes this natural payments network as well.
Cool. Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I would just encourage everybody to check out the new Axie MMO. Many people, I'm sure, know about Axie, and probably everything. Number one thing that people ask me, "Hey, how's Axie going? What's next for Axie? What's next for Ronin?" Right? Well, what's next for Axie? The Axie MMO. So pre-register for that. AxieInfinity.com. You're going to be able to pre-register. What's next for Ronin? More games launching, more MMOs launching. Follow Ronin on Twitter and wiki.roninchain.com. Really great resource for figuring out right all the different applications and games to check out on the Ronin network. Also, how to build on Ronin, right? A lot of people are also asking me like, "Oh, like we want to deploy something on Ronin. Like, can we talk to you and get a grant?" Uh, yeah, for us, the thing that's gonna work is, just deploy your shit and get some users and get the community excited. Then, right, that kind of forces our hand to talk to you and, potentially take a look at giving you a grant. I know like people are broke right now, but that's kind of like a pet peeve of me is like people just being like, hey, we need to talk to you before we deploy. Just shut up and deploy, like, and get some real traction before coming to get, for the money.
Yeah. So if people want to like experience Ronin and what it's like, do you think the best starting point is the Axie MMO? So to participate in that,
Well,
or
Axie
like,
MMO, just pre-register for it, right? So it's not out yet. What I would do is just go to wiki.roninchain.com and explore. Right, like we have a lot of different games that might be a good fit for you. Download the Ronin wallet. Ronin wallet has the best user experience of all Web3 wallets, I believe. Um, so that's what I would do, right? If you want to use it, right, go to wiki.roninchain.com and explore around. And if you're a developer, yeah, wiki.roninchain.com, and you'll figure out how to has all the documentation for learning how to deploy and go, mess around and post on Twitter. The Ronin community is super strong. There's also like meme coin communities on Ronin, right? So there's something called Ronke, which is like a Ronin meme, and it has a super strong community. If you want to get some users and excitement around anything that you're building on Ronin, like, kind of make an offering to the Ronki community, right? Like give them a shout out and boom, like you're going to have like the attention of thousands of of crazy people almost immediately. So,
yeah, I've heard a little bit that you guys have a
oh,
super vibrant and passionate community.
yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Jeff. It was really great to dive a little bit into the Ronin and sort of Web3 gaming and the current state. I'm excited to see how that evolves over the coming year. And I'm excited also to try out more myself because I have to admit, that's like one of the areas of crypto I have least explored. So I'd love to kind of dive into it a little bit too.
Yes, and the games are getting better. Like the thing that makes me super optimistic about Web3 gaming is that the games are getting better, the founders are getting better, and the game economies are getting better consistently over time. And if that weren't the case, then I would be worried. But luckily that's not the case. The games are getting really good. People are figuring out like optimizations for the game economies, as well as like trying out some novel new experiments. And founders are getting better at leading and communicating and creating agreements with the communities that choose to follow them.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Jeff. It was really great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.